Welcome back to the Emma International Podcast, where we explore the regulatory, quality, and operational challenges shaping the life sciences industry. I'm Eric.
And I'm Sarah. Today we're discussing a transition that can determine the future of a life sciences company, moving from startup operations to commercial manufacturing without losing control of compliance.
Growth is exciting. A company may be advancing toward regulatory approval, preparing for product launch, expanding its manufacturing capacity, or bringing on new partners. But growth also introduces risk. Processes that worked for a small team may not be able to support commercial production.
That is often where organizations run into trouble. During the startup stage, teams tend to be small, communication is informal, and decisions happen quickly. Once the organization begins scaling, those informal systems can create gaps in documentation, oversight, training, validation, and accountability.
The goal is not to slow down growth. It is to build the quality and regulatory infrastructure needed to support it.
Today, we'll examine the most common compliance risks companies face during commercialization and discuss how leadership teams can prepare their people, processes, facilities, systems, and partners for sustainable growth.
Let's begin with why commercial manufacturing is such a significant change. What makes this phase different from early product development?
During development, the organization is still learning about the product and refining its processes. Changes are expected, production volumes may be limited, and many activities are conducted on a small scale. Commercial manufacturing introduces a different level of responsibility. The company must repeatedly manufacture a product that meets established specifications while maintaining control over every process that could affect its safety, identity, strength, quality, or purity.
And regulators are not only looking at whether the final product passes testing.
Correct. Regulators want evidence that the entire manufacturing process is controlled and capable of consistently producing an acceptable product. That includes facilities, equipment, materials, computerized systems, personnel, suppliers, documentation, testing, storage, and distribution.
In other words, passing a final test does not compensate for an uncontrolled process.
Exactly. Commercial compliance depends on consistency, traceability, and scientific justification. A company needs to demonstrate that its decisions are supported by data and that its quality system can identify, investigate, and correct problems before they affect patients.
What are some signs that a company has outgrown its startup processes?
One of the clearest signs is when critical knowledge exists primarily in the minds of a few employees. If a process can only be completed correctly when a specific person is present, the organization has not fully standardized that process. Another warning sign is when procedures do not reflect how work is actually performed. Teams may create workarounds to keep operations moving, but those workarounds can lead to undocumented activities, inconsistent practices, and data integrity concerns.
Companies may also begin seeing longer investigation timelines, recurring deviations, training backlogs, or frequent document revisions.
Yes, those issues can indicate that the organization's quality system has not kept pace with its operational complexity. Other warning signs include unclear ownership of quality activities, delayed change controls, inadequate supplier oversight, and quality teams being consulted only after major decisions have already been made.
That last point is important. Quality should not be treated as the department that reviews a decision after it has been finalized.
Quality needs to be involved early, particularly when the company is selecting manufacturing equipment, designing facilities, implementing software, negotiating with contract partners, or modifying production processes. Early quality involvement can prevent expensive remediation later.
Let's talk about the quality management system. What does a startup need to consider as it moves toward commercial operations?
The quality management system should be designed around the organization's actual products, processes, technologies, and regulatory responsibilities. It should not simply be a collection of generic procedures. At a minimum, the system needs effective controls for documents, training, deviations, investigations, corrective and preventive actions, change control, complaints, supplier quality, audits, risk management, validation, and management review.
A common mistake is trying to build everything at once.
That approach can create a system that is unnecessarily complicated and difficult for employees to follow. A better strategy is to build the system in phases based on risk and operational need. The company should identify which processes are required now, which will be required before commercial launch, and which may be added as the organization matures. Each process should have clear ownership, defined responsibilities, measurable timelines, and appropriate escalation pathways.
Scalability matters too. A procedure that works for 5 employees may become inefficient when the organization grows to 50 or 500.
Right? Companies should evaluate whether their systems can handle increased volumes of records, deviations, changes, training assignments, supplier evaluations, and product complaints. If employees are relying on disconnected spreadsheets, emails, and shared folders, information can quickly become difficult to control.
This is where an electronic quality management system may become valuable.
It can, but implementing technology does not automatically create an effective quality system. The organization must define its requirements, validate the system as appropriate, establish user access controls, migrate data carefully, train employees, and maintain the system throughout its lifecycle. Technology should support a well-designed process. It cannot repair a process that has never been clearly defined.
Procedures and software are important, but compliance also depends on culture.
Absolutely. As a company grows, leadership must clearly communicate that quality is a shared responsibility. Compliance cannot belong only to the quality assurance department. Employees should understand why procedures exist, how their work affects product quality, and when an issue needs to be escalated. They also need to feel comfortable reporting mistakes and concerns.
If employees believe they will be punished for raising a problem, they may stay silent or try to fix it without documenting it.
And that can turn a manageable deviation into a much larger compliance issue. A healthy quality culture encourages transparency. It focuses on understanding what happened, protecting the product and the patient, and improving the system. Leadership behavior shapes that culture. If management consistently prioritizes output over procedure, employees will receive the message that compliance is optional when production goals are under pressure.
Commercial launch timelines can create intense pressure, but shortcuts often lead to delays rather than preventing them.
That is the irony. Skipping risk assessments, rushing validation, or delaying investigations may appear to save time initially. Later, those decisions can contribute to failed batches, inspection findings, product shortages, or delayed approvals.
Process validation is another major part of commercialization. How should companies approach it?
Process validation should be viewed as a life cycle, not as a single event performed shortly before launch. It begins with process design. The organization uses development knowledge and scientific studies to understand the process and identify the material attributes and process parameters that may affect product quality. The next stage involves process qualification. The company demonstrates that its facilities, utilities, equipment, and manufacturing process can perform effectively and reproducibly at the intended commercial scale. After commercialization, continued process verification is used to monitor performance and confirm that the process remains in a state of control.
That means the validation strategy should be connected to development data, risk management, equipment qualification, analytical methods, and ongoing monitoring.
Yes, companies can run into difficulty when knowledge does not transfer effectively from research and development to manufacturing. Decisions may have been made during development without being documented clearly enough to support commercial controls.
Technology transfer cannot be treated as simply handing a batch record to the manufacturing team.
It requires a structured exchange of product and process knowledge. The receiving site needs to understand the process, the reasons behind the controls, the known risks, and the history of development changes. A strong technology transfer plan should address manufacturing instructions, analytical methods, material specifications, equipment requirements, sampling plans, training, deviations, change control, and acceptance criteria.
Documentation becomes much more challenging as production volume increases.
It does. More people are generating more records across more systems, departments, and locations. Without effective controls, the risk of incomplete, inconsistent, or inaccurate information increases. Records should show what was done, who performed it, when it occurred, and whether the activity met established requirements. Entries should be attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, complete, consistent, enduring, and available.
Employees also need to understand that good documentation is not just about filling in every blank.
Correct? Documentation should accurately reflect the activity performed. Backdating records, using unofficial notes, sharing login credentials, overwriting data, or recreating missing information can raise serious data integrity concerns. Companies should evaluate the complete data lifecycle. They need to understand how data is created, reviewed, modified, transferred, stored, backed up, archived, and retrieved.
That includes both paper and electronic records.
Yes, hybrid processes can be especially difficult because information may move between equipment, laboratory systems, spreadsheets, printed documents, and quality platforms. Every transfer creates an opportunity for error or loss of context. As companies scale, periodic data integrity assessments can help identify vulnerabilities before they result in regulatory findings.
What happens when a company needs to increase production capacity?
Capacity expansion should be managed through formal planning and change control. Adding equipment, introducing a new production line, modifying a facility, or increasing batch size can affect product quality in ways that are not immediately obvious. The company should assess the impact on material flow, personnel flow, contamination control, environmental monitoring, cleaning, utilities, maintenance, calibration, computerized systems, and operator training.
Simply purchasing larger equipment does not guarantee that the process will perform the same way.
Exactly. Scale can affect mixing, heat transfer, hold times, pressure, filtration, drying, and many other process characteristics. Those differences need to be evaluated scientifically. Organizations should also be careful when operating near maximum capacity. When equipment, employees, or laboratory resources are stretched too far, maintenance may be delayed, reviews may be rushed, and investigations may begin accumulating.
Capacity planning should include quality control laboratories, warehousing, document review, and quality assurance, not only production output.
That is a key point. Manufacturing may be able to produce additional batches, but the organization also needs the capacity to test materials, review records, investigate discrepancies, release products, and respond to quality events.
Many startups rely heavily on contract development and manufacturing organizations, testing laboratories, and other external partners.
Outsourcing can provide valuable expertise and capacity, but the sponsor or product owner cannot outsource its regulatory responsibility. The company needs a risk-based supplier qualification and oversight program. Before selecting a partner, it should evaluate the partner's capabilities, quality systems, regulatory history, resources, technical expertise, and ability to meet the company's requirements.
The quality agreement is another essential component.
It should clearly define which party is responsible for activities such as material release, deviation investigations, change notifications, batch disposition, stability testing, complaint handling, record retention, audits, and regulatory communications. Ambiguity creates risk. If both parties assume the other is responsible for an activity, it may not happen at all.
Oversight also needs to continue after the agreement is signed.
Yes, the company should monitor quality metrics, review deviations and trends, conduct periodic audits, assess changes, and maintain regular communication with its partners. Supplier management becomes more complex as the network expands. Organizations need visibility beyond their immediate contractor, especially when critical materials, services, or manufacturing steps are subcontracted.
Change is constant during commercialization. How can companies keep it under control without slowing everything down?
The purpose of change control is not to prevent change. It is to make sure change is evaluated, approved, implemented, and verified in a controlled manner. Before a change is made, the organization should understand what is changing, why it is necessary, which products and systems may be affected, what risks it creates, and what actions are required.
Those actions might include validation, stability studies, regulatory submissions, supplier notifications, document revisions, or employee training.
Correct. The assessment should involve the appropriate functions, such as quality, regulatory affairs, manufacturing, engineering, validation, and technical operations. After implementation, the organization should confirm that the change achieved its intended outcome and did not introduce unexpected problems.
Weak change control often leads to disconnected decisions.
For example, engineering may replace a component, information technology may update software, or a supplier may modify a raw material process without everyone understanding the full regulatory and quality impact. A mature change control process connects those decisions and creates a traceable record of how risk was managed.
Scaling also means hiring quickly. What compliance risks can arise during workforce expansion?
New employees may join faster than the organization can train them. Roles may change frequently, and responsibilities may become unclear. Experienced team members can become overloaded with onboarding, review, and supervision. A scalable training program should connect each role with the procedures, technical skills, and regulatory knowledge needed to perform it. Training should be completed before employees perform tasks independently, and its effectiveness should be evaluated when appropriate.
Reading a procedure and signing a form may not be enough for a complex manufacturing activity.
Exactly. Some tasks require observation, demonstration, qualification, or supervised execution. The training method should reflect the risk and complexity of the work. Companies should also maintain accurate job descriptions and organizational charts. Employees need to understand who has the authority to make decisions, approve records, release materials, stop production, and escalate concerns.
Consultants and temporary employees need to be included in that system as well.
Anyone performing a regulated activity should be qualified for the work and trained on the relevant procedures. Rapid growth should not create a separate standard for temporary or contract personnel.
As operations expand, leaders need an effective way to understand whether the quality system is keeping pace.
Quality metrics can provide that visibility. Companies may monitor deviation rates, investigation cycle times, recurring events, kappa effectiveness, right first time performance, batch rejection rates, environmental monitoring trends, complaints, training completion, supplier performance, and overdue quality records.
Metrics should do more than produce a monthly dashboard.
They should support decisions. If deviation volume is increasing, management should ask whether the increase is connected to a specific process, product, shift, piece of equipment, or training gap. The goal is to identify emerging risk before it becomes a significant failure. Metrics should be reviewed during management review meetings, and action should be assigned when trends indicate that additional resources or process improvements are needed.
It is also important not to reward artificially low deviation numbers.
A low number of reported deviations does not always mean the process is performing well. It may mean employees do not recognize deviations or are reluctant to report them. Leaders need to examine reporting culture and data quality alongside the numbers.
Commercialization also brings increased regulatory scrutiny. When should a company begin preparing for an inspection?
Inspection readiness should begin well before the inspection is announced. If a company waits until a regulatory agency is preparing to visit, there may not be enough time to resolve systemic issues. Routine internal audits, mock inspections, facility walkthroughs, record reviews, and quality system assessments can help identify gaps. Companies should verify that procedures reflect current operations. Records are complete and accessible. Employees understand their roles, and open investigations or CAPAs are being managed appropriately.
Employees also need practice responding to inspector questions.
They should answer honestly, clearly, and directly. They should explain what they know based on their role and avoid guessing or offering unsupported information. Inspection readiness is not about rehearsing perfect answers. It is about making sure the organization's daily operations can withstand scrutiny.
If a startup is approaching commercial manufacturing, where should leadership begin?
Start with a comprehensive gap assessment. Evaluate the current quality system, manufacturing controls, validation program, supplier network, computerized systems, workforce capabilities, facility readiness, and regulatory commitments. Then prioritize the gaps based on product and patient risk. Not every issue has the same urgency, so the organization needs a realistic remediation roadmap with defined owners, resources, and deadlines.
Companies should also look ahead rather than building only for today's workload.
Yes, leadership should consider expected production volumes, future products, additional markets, new facilities, and potential partners. Systems should be flexible enough to support growth without becoming unnecessarily complex. Cross-functional governance is also critical. Commercial readiness should bring together quality, regulatory affairs, manufacturing, supply chain, engineering, validation, information technology, and executive leadership.
And progress needs to be reviewed regularly.
Commercialization plans change. Regulatory feedback, technical challenges, supplier delays, or business decisions may affect priorities. Regular reviews allow the organization to reassess risk and adjust its plans while maintaining control.
If there is one lesson listeners should take from this conversation, what would it be?
Compliance should scale at the same pace as the business. Companies cannot wait until commercial production begins to establish the systems, controls, and culture required to support it. The strongest organizations build quality into their growth strategy. They document knowledge, validate their processes, oversee their partners, train their people, monitor performance, and address risks before those risks reach the product or the patient.
Growth will always involve change and uncertainty. The objective is not to eliminate either one. It is to manage them through science, risk-based decision-making, and an effective quality system.
When compliance is integrated into planning from the beginning, it can help an organization grow more efficiently, respond more confidently to regulators, and build a reliable path to commercial success.
If your organization is preparing to scale manufacturing, strengthen its quality systems, transfer technology, qualify suppliers, validate processes, or improve inspection readiness, Emma International can help.
Our team works with life sciences companies at every stage of development to build practical, sustainable compliance programs that support both regulatory expectations and business growth.
Visit www.minternational.com to learn more about our services and connect with our team.
Thank you for listening to Season 5, Episode 8 of the Emma International Podcast.
We'll see you next time.